student at ultra-liberal 80,000 a year Oberlin College. You remember how we talked about them quite a bit back in the day? Well, they're back. Complains that contractors hired to install radiators in women's and trans safe space dorm rooms were cisgendered men. You know what? I think that's fine. I actually agree with this crybaby. What they should have done was not replace any or not install any radiators at all until like women contractors came in to do it. And if they can't find any women to do it, I guess you're not going to have any radiators this winter. Fucking deal with it. A student at an $80,000 a year ultra-liberal Oberlin College in Ohio claimed in an op-ed that he was left angry, scared, and confused because cisgender men installed a radiator in his safe space dormitory. Well, Peter Freywitzer, a student enrolled at Oberlin College, posted an article in Friday's edition of the Oberlin Review in which he takes school administrators to task for giving him short notice about the installation. Freywitzer writes that he asked a campus official if he could be exempt from having a radiator installed in his room so as to avoid the intrusion. Hey, they should have just given it to him. Let him fucking freeze to death over the winter. He also complains that he felt mildly violated and a little peeved when contractors returned to his dorm room the next day to check the insulation. According to Freywitzer, he and other residents of the on-campus dorm Baldwin Cottage received an email on October 7th notifying them that contractors will be entering rooms the next day to install radiators. Hey, if they don't want one, they should be allowed to freeze. This will mean that they will be in your room for a period of time to complete the work, Josh Matos, the area coordinator for multicultural and identity-based communities, wrote in an email. You want to know why colleges are collapsing? It's because instead of giving more money to the fucking fields and degrees and departments that need it, they give good six-figure salaries for bloat positions like coordinator for multicultural and identity-based communities. Freywitzer wrote in response, I had not been contacted about any sort of radiator installation before this email, so right away the word update stood out to me as untrue. I grew concerned reading the second line, which informed me that I had less than 24 hours to prepare for the arrival of the installation crew, and I was further perturbed by the ambiguous for a period of time. Man, this kid is never going to be able to get the internet installed at his house, ever. Or his mom's house, rather. Freywitzer adds in his op-ed that he was very averse to people entering my personal space. You're welcome to quit and go back home. This anxiety was compounded by the fact the crew would be strangers, and they were even more likely to be cisgender men. Wait up. Wait up, I got it. I know what's going on. This guy must have some extremely hard to hide fetishes, let's just say. Like maybe he has fetishes that involve like giant pieces of furniture or something. Maybe he's a fucking baby fur or something and he had this giant crib in his room. And he's like, I have no time to discreetly hide this or move it somewhere with this little notice. Oh, that's probably what's going on. Yeah, he probably didn't have enough time to hide his baby fur sex dungeon by the time the contractors came in. That's really what's going on. Yeah, brilliant move, by the way, using this whole alphabet soup stuff as an excuse. And yeah, he did just assume the contractor's gender. That's that's very problematic there, Junior. Cisgender is a term used to describe someone whose gender identity is the same as what they were born as. The word is considered an antonym of transgender, which means a person who identifies as gender that is opposite to what they were assigned when they were born. But I thought that gender was non-binary. The dorm where Freywitzer lives, Baldwin Cottage, is known as the home of the Women's and Trans Collective. Oberlin, the liberal arts college with a student body of 3,000, describes the dorm as a close-knit community that provides women's and transgender persons with a safe space for discussion, communal living, and personal development. Well, maybe this will encourage more women's to get into certain fields of work when they realize they can't get anything done unless women's come in there. According to the school, Baldwin Cottage, which houses 30 students, is open to anyone who identifies as female or trans, regardless of race, nationality, religion, assigned sex, or sexual orientation. The Oxford Dictionary defines a safe space as a place or environment in which a person or category of people can feel confident they will not be exposed to discrimination, criticism, harassment, or any other emotional or physical harm. It's real funny how these fuckers work, though. Like, I am actually, believe it or not opposed to things like this. Like, if you really look at it, your home is the ultimate safe space, isn't it? We even got laws in our Constitution that make it as hard as possible for even the government to interrupt you in your own home. Your home was supposed to be the ultimate safe space. So I don't have anything against this idea in principle, but my problem is that it only goes one way. These lunatics, they come out, they enter our spaces everywhere, they fuck with us, and then as soon as we start fighting back, they run screaming into their safe space like, nope, this is my safe space. You can't come in here to mess with me like I was with you. That's my problem with this whole thing. If all of these groups can have safe spaces, I will not complain about their safe spaces as long as they also allow straight white men to have our own, where we don't have to let any of these psychos in to ruin everything. Gatekeeping, man, that's what we need to be doing more of. Yeah, if these guys won't let us into their spaces, fine, you're not welcome into mine either, motherfucker. Get lost. And if we can't explicitly exclude people for legal reasons, just make the environment as hostile to them as possible so they won't even want to come there. That's actually the big brain idea Texas has. Yeah, that's what fucking Texas is doing. So the biggest fear is all the Californians moving to Texas and ruining it like they did their own state. But then Texas was like, you know what? Let's implement this abortion law. And now they're running away from Texas. Anyway, safe spaces are normally located on college campuses. Oh, man. Nice low-key diss by the Daily Mail. Yeah, about the only place in the world you find a safe space is at the adult daycare center. They have prompted criticism from many who say they are being used to silence on-campus political debate or and censor views that are unpopular. You know what? You know who needs a safe space? People who hold views that are unpopular. They should have a safe space where these fuckers can't go and mess with them. Oh, Freywitzer writes that cisgender men are not allowed to live on the second and third floor, then many residents choose not to invite cisgender men into that space. Many choose not to. That means there a few would, huh? He added, I was angry, scared, and confused. Why didn't the college complete the installation over the summer when the building was empty? Because all that money had to go to the bloat. That's why. And they just barely scrounged it up by now. Why couldn't they tell us precisely when the workers would be there? Because they're... Do you know how estimation works? Like, and as much as I give cockmast shit for this, I understand why they give such a large window and still miss it. Any contractor that you hire to come over and do work for you, unless you are their first fucking appointment of the day, it's entirely possible that their previous appointments had to run over. So that's why they oftentimes miss their window. Yeah, you may be their fourth appointment for the day, and the previous three all were disasters that dragged on half an hour to an hour longer than they should have. That's why they can't say precisely when the workers will be there. Of course, you wouldn't know that, you spoiled little bitch. Why were they only notifying us the day before the installation was due to begin? Well, because most people wouldn't see it as a big deal, because most people don't have like giant baby fur merch all over the place that would need hiding. And Freywitzer describes seeing the contractors arrive at the dorm before they showed us. He writes, he waited apprehensively. The workers began installing in common spaces, and I could see immediately they were all men. You motherfucker, did you just assume their gender? Holy shit, how is this fucking bigot allowed to remain at this college? This makes no sense. It was clear the college had not made a special request that male workers not be allowed to the upper floors of Baldwin. No, that's a fair point. They should have made that fucking request. Just let them freeze if they want. Predicting when they would reach my room was pure guesswork. You realize you could have just gone somewhere for the day, right? I was trying to anticipate whether I would be in class when they arrived or if I'd have to welcome strangers into my room only to be ejected to allow them space to work. Oh, the horror. This is someone who's never had a real problem in his whole life, man. When the contractors arrived, they knocked on the door to Freywitzer's dorm room. He writes, when the insistent knock eventually came, I scrambled to get my mask on and repeatedly shouted, coming, through the door. TMI, motherfucker. 4 or 5 construction workers stood outside, accompanied by someone I could only assume by his neat polo and clipboard was an emissary of the college. Oh, are you going to describe in excruciating detail the physiques of these 4 or 5 construction workers? Because that would fit his character. We stared at each other for a moment before I moved aside to allow the workers to enter. So you admit that you undressed them with your eyes before letting them in. The emissary began issuing platitudes that the work wouldn't take long and encouraged me to prop open my door. I asked meekly if I could actually not have the radiator installed in my dorm. If you waited until they were already there, the answer is no. I knew the answer was no before I even said it, but hey, worth a shot. Now, Freywitzer writes that when he returned from class, Polo Man warned me that they would return later in the week to check the installation. I couldn't help but think that, though there were other dorms affected by the installation, Baldwin Cottage was one of the worst places for it to occur. I agree. Don't give them radiators. They clearly don't want them. Let them burn their books to survive the winter. I mean, these are college books we're talking about. They would be probably better off, honestly. There are myriad reasons to want to be housed in Baldwin Cottage, but many people, myself included, chose to live there for the added degree of privacy and a feeling of safety and protection. Yeah, you realize you're living on someone else's property, though, right? You don't have a say in this. A significant portion of the students choose to live in Baldwin because they are victims of sexual assault or abuse. Translation, someone looked at them sternly or something. They have suffered past invasions of privacy or have some other reason to fear cisgender men. And I bet that every opportunity they get, they force their way into spaces that are primarily for cisgender men and then cry that they feel unsafe and all the cisgender men have to go. And then we got all these awesome freaking tweets. Will they be survivors of some kind after this? Yep. Simple solution for the workers. Don't install radiators in the rooms of students who don't want you in their room. It's not your problem. I agree. That's what they should have done. Like, well, you don't want it, you don't get it. Now, this guy being scared, angry, and confused that he might be forced to interact with another male who is either straight or gay, i.e. not non-binary, is peak Oberlin. We will never get to peak Oberlin, man. Never. That was an exhausting read. Why is this an article? Why was that more than 2 sentences about what happened? Because these professional victims love to hear themselves talk. That's why. I was angry, scared, and confused, says an Oberlin student who was required to allow a worker into Zer's dorm room to fix the radiator. Why? Because the worker was a cis man. A public admission of a need for therapy. Yeah, remember when people like this would be locked up in a padded room to get the help they need? Pepperidge Farm remembers. Geez, such an uncomfortable situation. My thoughts are with those who are traumatized. Yeah, those poor construction workers, or rather, those poor contractors that were forced to enter this basically clown tent and put up with this shit all day. Freywitzer claims that other students shared his concerns about being the subject to the whims of the contractors. Yeah, I understand, of course, that installations like this are routine. The college needs to improve its facilities occasionally. And who am I to stand in the way of that? Well, you're nobody. Yeah, at least you understand. But why not finish the project during the 4 month of the summer semester when the building was unoccupied? Why not alert us earlier to the intrusion? I mean, to be fair, both of those are actually fair questions. They should have taken measures to keep students comfortable and safe, especially those who have elected to live in a specifically designated safe space. Oh my God. Safe spaces. So when I used to live in apartments, like usually they would announce at least a day ahead of time when they'd be entering your apartment. Not always, but they usually would for a very good reason. Sometimes when they didn't announce that they'd be entering people's apartments, let's just say a bunch of hilarious incidents broke out when they just let themselves into an apartment whose owners were away at work, and they had some pretty big dogs just hanging out in the apartment. You see where this is going? That's actually the main reason they give advance warning. If it wasn't the fear of their own safety, I don't think they ever would. Yeah, I seriously think the only reason they gave any warning at all was because a few of them got mauled by dogs. Get 'em, T-Bone. Hell yeah. W for wolf. Yeah, you got nothing to hide, right? Nah, I got nothing to hide, but if you don't want to tell me you're coming ahead of time, I'm not going to know to kennel my dogs. So, whatever. It's going to be your fucking problem. But all right, that's enough of that. Just something I learned from my own time living in apartments. Thankfully, I actually have a house now, so it's not an issue anymore. But whatever. Urinalist Glenn Greenwald twatted. Students at Oberlin, which cost $80,000 a year to attend, are angry and scared that the low-paid servants sent to fix their radiators are cis men. Perfect illustration of how shitty identity leftism or doesn't just ignore class repression but reinforces it. Ponder the rotted roots of an ideology that convinces highly privileged and wealthy students at elite colleges that the guys who come fix their radiators are the oppressors and that the ones whose family is paying $80,000 a year are the oppressed. That's a damn good point, isn't it? Yeah, you got these rich, privileged, spoiled pieces of shit acting like they're being oppressed by the blue collar workers who were just doing their jobs, fixing their fucking radiators. Oh man, I am so excited to tell you guys right now that finally, after about a year of build-up and shilling, we have launched Blade Devil on Indiegogo, and so far it is doing so well thanks to awesome people like you. If you haven't backed it yet, then please check the links in the description and check out Blade Devil on Indiegogo. You will not be disappointed. Looking forward to seeing you there.